I want you to just, for a second, picture the absolute worst feeling you've ever had.
And not just like a bad day.
No, I'm talking about a panic that feels
The-
physical.
Yeah.
You know, a memory that just shuts your body down. Your throat closes up. Your chest feels like it's caving in.
Total system failure.
That's it. Now imagine if you could somehow, I don't know, reach into your chest, grab that feeling, and just pull it out.
Okay.
And turn it into a computer file, a literal digital file that you can drag and drop.
Or even delete.
Exactly.
That sounds like science fiction, like something out of a cyberpunk novel where you just upload your pain to the cloud.
It does, but the sources we're diving into today suggest this is a psychological reality for some. We're looking at the possibility of turning a monster into a 3-megabyte file.
And that's really the core of today's deep dive.
It is. We are exploring a really fascinating and, frankly, pretty heavy set of sources about a project called the Sonic Diary.
Specifically, this one track or process called mystory.mp3.
And if you just saw that on a file list, you'd think, oh, it's a song, maybe some spoken word.
Right. And we should be super clear. This is not a music review. We are not here to talk about melody or rhythm.
Not at all. The documentation we have, and this includes the artist's liner notes, raw lyrics, and this really intense broadcast transcript called Reclaiming You, it describes this as something much more clinical.
The creator calls it an autopsy of a survival mechanism.
I love that phrase, an autopsy.
It's powerful, isn't it? It implies the old way of surviving had to die for this new way to even begin. Like we're looking at the ghost of a coping strategy.
That is a grim image, but it fits perfectly. So our mission today is to try and understand this alchemy, this process of converting trauma into data.
How do you take overwhelming physical panic and just export it until it's just a little icon on your desktop?
Because if that is actually possible, it completely reframes how we think about processing pain.
It really does. And to get the solution, this digital file, you have to understand the problem. The sources paint this really vivid and honestly terrifying picture of the before state.
This wasn't just someone feeling sad. Sadness is way too gentle a word.
Oh, yeah.
The imagery in the liner notes, it's so visceral. The artist describes the noise inside their head as a riot.
Not a headache, a riot.
A riot. A constant scream.
That word is so specific. A riot implies chaos, violence, a total loss of control. It's like a mob inside your own skull.
And the source material gets very specific about what's causing it. It talks about this feedback loop of triggers, things like every hand that touched me, every hotel room door that clicked shut.
That hotel door, wow.
Right, such a small mechanical sound, a click. But here it's this symbol of crushing exploitation.
It's a Pavlovian trigger. That sound means you're trapped. The text talks about the demand of selling access to yourself. I mean, it's heavy stuff. It's basically a person who's lost ownership of their own body.
It is. And what's fascinating is how the source describes the somatic reaction. The trauma isn't a memory in the past. It's a physical weight.
It's happening right now.
All the time. The throat closes up, the chest caves in. The source says the panic wasn't separate from the person. It was them.
And that's the crucial point. This is why just talking about it failed. The Reclaiming You transcript is super clear on this. Trying to speak caused the body to just crash.
The old survival mechanism was broken.
Exactly. So if your throat closes up, you need a different way out, a different output.
Yeah.
And that's what sets the stage for this digital solution.
Which brings us to the alchemy. The sources describe this pivot from trying to speak to typing.
They call it the input.
Yeah, but it's described almost like, I don't know, industrial work. It's not creative writing.
No. And notice the language shifts in the text. When it's about feelings, the words are fluid, like drowning. But when it's about the computer, the words get mechanical.
Right. The artist talks about funneling this dark history through a keyboard.
From the gut to the fingertips, that's the phrase.
It's like plumbing almost. You're moving this toxic sludge from one container, your body, into another one, machine.
Precisely. And the source is careful to separate this from performing. This isn't about writing a hit song.
No.
They call it purging. They're feeding the secrets hidden underneath the shroud of shame, that's a direct quote, to the glowing screen.
That image of the glowing screen keeps coming up. It feels almost ritualistic, like you're making an offering to a digital altar.
It is a ritual, but it's a ritual of transformation. The Reclaiming You source points to this critical moment. Once the trauma is typed out and saved, it actually changes states.
It stops being a memory.
Which is fluid and emotional, right? And it starts being data, which is static, binary.
That is such a wild concept, that your pain can have its chemical makeup changed just because it's on a hard drive now.
The source uses this metaphor,
Yeah.
giving the ghost a proper name.
Right. You can't fight a ghost that's just haunting your whole house, but if you can trap it...
If you can trap it in a jar, then you can deal with the jar. Exactly. And the source material digs into why this works with this really interesting visual about the computer monitor.
Oh yeah, the glass. The lyrics mention a protective sheet of glass, or a shield.
Think about that physically. A screen is a barrier, but it's a transparent one. You can see the thing on the other side.
But it can't touch you.
It can't touch you. It's like looking at a shark in an aquarium. It's terrifying, but you know there's glass between you and the teeth.
And in this aquarium, the shark is this jagged waveform on the monitor.
For anyone who hasn't used audio software, that's the visual shape as the sound.
Right, a squiggly line. And the artist is looking at that and realizing, that shape, that's my pain, but it's over there.
It's over there.
Yeah.
That is the breakthrough. It's a psychological concept, objectification.
Which usually has such a negative meaning, especially in this context of the industry.
Exactly. The artist was treated as an object, a product. But here, the authorities say the script gets flipped.
So they're taking that power back.
Yes. They are turning the trauma into the object. They're externalizing the internal horror. Instead of being the object, they are making the pain the object.
So it's no longer subjective, I feel like I'm dying. It's objective, that is a file on my desktop.
And once it's an object, you can manipulate it.
You can do things to it.
Right.
The source lists these technical actions that suddenly become these huge metaphors for control. I can pause it.
I can turn the volume down.
I can hit delete.
It sounds so simple, but for someone who felt gagged and helpless, that agency is revolutionary. The source contrasts the messy room of memories with the safety of just sitting in the chair.
The riot is trapped behind the pixels.
It's contained.
It's a zoo for your monsters. They're behind glass. You can look at them, but they can't bite you.
And because they can't bite you, you can start to organize them. Which brings us to the next role the artist takes on. The source calls it becoming the administrator.
I like this part. It's very IT department for your soul. It implies this healthy level of detachment.
It really is.
Yeah.
And the source uses the audio engineering term compression.
Okay, so let's get into this, because I know compression makes files smaller, but in music production, it's different, right?
It is, yeah. In audio, compression is a tool you use to even out volume. It takes the really loud parts, the spikes, and it pushes them down, and it brings the quiet parts up.
So it makes the whole thing more manageable. It stops it from blowing out your speakers.
Precisely. Now, apply that to the reclaiming you source. They talk about squashing these huge, unwieldy memories so they take up less space.
I'm trimming this. It only needs to be 4 kilobytes. That's the quote.
You're deciding the file size of your own trauma.
That is a profound form of emotional regulation. You're not saying it didn't happen. You're not deleting the data.
You're just compressing the dynamic range so it doesn't blow out your nervous system every time you think about it.
It's recontextualizing the whole story. There's a lyric that I think is key here. It's not a flashback if I press play. It's just a record of the yesterday.
That distinction is everything. A flashback attacks you. A record. You choose when to play a record.
You can skip the track if you're not in the mood.
Exactly. And the source makes it clear they aren't erasing history. They say, I'll keep it dirty, let the grit remain.
They're not pretending it didn't happen.
No. The exploited girl from the story.
Yeah.
She still exists. But now, as the lyrics say, she lives in the MP3. She doesn't run the day.
The artist can visit her, but they don't have to be her anymore.
That separation is everything. And it all leads to the final step in the process, the export.
The sources describe this visual of watching a blue progress bar just crawl across the screen.
It's the final act of surgery. The computer's baking all that noise, all that panic, all that riot we talked about at the start, into one single static thing.
We've all stared at a progress bar, waiting for a download, but here, watching that bar go from 0 to 100% must feel incredibly high stakes.
It is. It's the alchemy happening in real time. The computer's doing the heavy lifting the brain just couldn't do on its own.
And the result is the file itself. mystory.mp3. The source makes a really big deal about the size. 3 megabytes.
Just think about that. Years of trauma. The weight of every hand, every closed door. And it's now 3 megabytes, a tiny static object.
It's no longer a living, breathing, hurting thing.
It's done.
And it fits in a folder. Or a trash can. That's the wildest part. You can just drag this massive emotional burden into the trash icon on your desktop.
Or keep it on a backup drive. The point is, it's not in you anymore.
And that leads to the silence.
Mm.
The source draws this very sharp line. In the beginning, there was the silence of being gagged, the silence of the victim. But after the export,
It's the silence of completion. It's the sound of the computer fan spinning down because the job is finished. That silence is safety.
and because it's a file, it bridges the gap to other people. This was a part of the source material I found really touching.
The sharing aspect.
Yeah. The text mentions sending a link to a friend or a therapist. Here is a piece of me. Here is the dust. You don't have to sit there shaking and crying, trying to find the words.
Which, as we established, often just makes the throat close up anyway.
Exactly. Instead, you just send the link. You let the file tell the story.
It validates the angry and rude parts of healing, as the source puts it. You don't have to sanitize your trauma for the listener. You just hand them the data.
It's a brilliant system. You know, we spend so much time talking about how technology is bad for us, doom scrolling, social media.
Right.
But this is using the machine as a surgical tool.
That's the core message here. The screen doesn't have to be a distraction. It can be a sterile field for surgery on our own ghosts. This deep dive really challenges us to look at our devices in a totally different way.
So as we wrap up, I just want to go back to that image of the progress bar. This whole Alchemist's archive is really about the courage to let that bar hit 100%.
It is. It's the journey from the internal riot to the external file.
So here's something for you to think about. We all have things we carry, maybe not a riot, but a burden, a worry. If you could sit down, type it all out, every messy detail, and watch it turn into a blue progress bar, would you have the courage to hit export?
And once it was just a file sitting there in a folder,
Yeah.
this tiny 3-megabyte thing, would you keep it? Or would you drag it to the trash?
Something I'm all over. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. We'll catch you on the next one.